Welcome back, my name is Guy, and today I'm going to show you how to build this cool cherry and ash jewelry box with 3 drawers. The case of the box is joined together with 3 dovetails and the drawers with half-blind dovetails. The neat thing is I did all the joining for this piece using my INCRA LS Positioner on my router table. I really want to show you how easy it is to use this system to create joinery like this. So let's get started. Now this is my INCRA LS Positioner on the router table I built not too long ago. And no matter how you make dovetails, cutting them by hand or using any kind of commercial jig, dovetails may seem a little complicated. The LS Positioner with the multitude of included templates, in my opinion, is by far the easiest and most versatile way to make them. Well, this is a cherry board I'm going to be using for the project. It's about 50 inches long, about 9 1/4 inches wide, give or take, and a little over a ½ inch thick. But it's important to know how wide this board is to help me choose the template to cut the dovetails. Now this is the INCRA Master Reference Guide and Template Library that comes with your LS Positioner. These are the template guides that come with your INCRA LS Positioner. Now most dovetail jigs, it's a set spacing. It's basically one thing you can do with it. Not with this. You can do through dovetails, half-blind dovetails, double dovetails, box joints. There's really quite a bit of things that can do with this. So I need to take that measurement before, which I said was 9 1/4 inches, and start looking through this template guide and figure out which pattern I want. And I've already done that, and I've decided on dovetail Q. Now we know the width of our board is 9 1/4 inches, and we know that we want to put the dovetail pins on the side of the board. So if I take my ruler and I start it here, approximately in the center of one of these pins, and then look over here where 9 1/4 inches, it's off in space where the dovetail is actually going to be, or the tail part of the dovetail is going to be. So I want to be about right here. That's 8 1/2 inches. So if I make my board 8 1/2 inches, I know I'm going to have a pin on either side of that board. Well, now that we've decided on what dovetail template to use and what the width of our board needs to be, we need to figure out which bit we're going to use. Now I want to use 1/2 inch stock for a through dovetail, and it's telling me if I look over here that I need a 1/2 inch 10-degree dovetail bit. Another very important thing to take a look at is the approximate depth of cut, which is 1/2 inch. So taking those numbers, I can go over my router table and start setting it up to cut these. Now I've got the bit chucked up in the router. I just need to raise the bit up until it's at a 1/2 inch. That 1/2 inch was the suggested depth of cut that we looked at before in the reference guide. Now that the bit height is set, I'm going to spin this around until it's at its widest points here. And I'm just going to slide the fence over until about half of that bit is exposed. Now I can take this Lexan scale and just move it till the 0 is right underneath the hairline cursor. With the fence moved over, I can take my right angle jig, put it in place. I'm going to use the thumb screw on the side to lock it down. And then I'm going to take a couple pieces of wood, make sure these are flat and square to the edge. Those are just going to go up against there and make sure they're flat to the table and flat to the fence. Now I just need to turn the router on and make it the first pass. Well, after I made that first cut, the manual says for that dovetail template, the suggested spacing for the depth of cut setting is 13/16. So I'm just going to move the fence over to 13/16, lock it down, and make the second test cut. So let's unclamp these and see how that looks. As you can see, there's a little tiny gap right here. And we'll have to slowly raising the bit up and creeping up on the cut. This was the 4th test cut. It only took about 5 minutes. And now I'm left with a nice, perfect dovetail joint. Now this next step is very important. I do not want to change the depth of cut on my router bit anymore. I want to leave it exactly where it is. So I've got my board here, and it's just a little bit thicker than this, and I want to plane this down until it's the same height as this bit. Well, now I need to center the bit for the 8 1/2 inch stock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin the router bit so that it's its widest point forward. I'm going to take my fence and a scrap piece of wood, just put it up against the fence. I like to leave a little bit extra there and then lock this down. Now if you notice there's a little bit of a rock to this. That's okay. I'm just going to take my micro adjust and push the fence up until that rock goes away. Now the LS Positioner comes with an auto centering scale, which is pretty cool. It makes this process really super easy. So after I've zeroed it out to the bit, I just move this scale over, and right there I've got a 1/2 inch bit. So I'm just going to move that right under a 1/2 inch. Now if I take this, unlock it, and move it to 8.5, I know I'm centered on that piece. I've got the master reference guide laid out again, and I'm just trying to figure out which one of these points I'm going to be using as my center point. Now I've got one of the boards here that's going to be the sides, and I know I'm going to have a 1/2 pin. So I'm going to put that about there, and in the center of that is the M between 8B and 9B. So if I take my template, put it there like that, I know that all the red cuts are what I need to use on the jig itself. So I need to take this over here and line up that M with the center line that we marked before. I'm going to be cutting the tails first on this. So the first thing I'm going to take my right angle clamp, put it on my fence, and I'm going to clamp this down so it stays nice and flat. So I'm going to take the top and the bottom, which are going to have the tails in them. I'm going to put them against the right angle fence, keep them flat to the table and all the way over to the fence, and clamp those in place. After I've removed the clamp from the right angle fence, I can release the clamp on the carriage, and I'm going to start cutting the tails first like I mentioned before. And those are actually the blue marks, and I'm going to start at 3A. So I'm just going to slide the carriage over to 3A, lock it down, make the first cut, unclamp it, keep moving over, and keep going all the way up the blue marks until I have the tails cut on the board. Well, after I got the tails cut on this side, I've cleaned the table off. I just need to unclamp this, flip it around, then I just need to repeat the steps for this side. Now let's take the clamp off. There we go, I've got all my tail boards completely done. Well, now that the tails are done, I need to work on the pins. So I've got the pin boards in the right angle fixture the same way I did for the tail boards. I need to go down, unclamp the carriage, start working on the red marks this time on the template, and just move down the line and cut all the pins. Alright, so now I've got all the pins cut. I just need to do one more operation and then we can be able to put this case together. So I've got one of the pin boards, and I've also got the stop that comes with the positioner. And what I want to do first, I want to take the router bit, and I'm just going to spin it by hand till it's its widest point facing this way. I'm just going to move this board up here. I don't want to slam it into there, but just barely kiss it. I'm going to take this INCRA stop, tighten it down. This bar here I've left a little loose. I'm just going to take that and push it up until it touches that wood. The fence is set at the first position of one of the red numbers, and that's the pin numbers. That's the ones we used on the pin boards. So I'm just going to take a rubber-soled push block, keeping it flat to the table, push this in until I hit that stop. I don't want to ram it in there. I just want to touch it. So I'm going to flip the piece around, do this, move it to the next position, and do that. If you look here, there's just a little bit of a bump there where that dovetail bit didn't get all the way in. So I'm just going to take a chisel, just really lightly, just get rid of that one little thing right there. That's all there is to it. I got all the pieces right. I'm ready to do a dry assembly, so I've got pieces 1, 2, and 3. I'm just going to flip these over. I'll do that for now. And they're kind of tight, I think. I've got my drawer sides and front milled to the correct width I want for the drawer size, and I've decided on dovetail H. The reason for that is I've got the drawer front is going to have the pins on it, and I want a 1/2 pin on either side of that. So that gives me that. This template also tells me that I need to use the A cuts or the blue cuts for the pins and the B cuts or the red cuts for the tails. Now my template's also telling me that I need 3/8 inch material for half blind dovetails, which I have. I also need a 3/8 by 9 degree dovetail bit to make these, which I also have. And the process is basically the same thing that we did before. I need to use the approximate depth of cut to set the dovetail height. I need to center, and another thing I need to know is the approximate rabbet width, and I'll show you what that's for later. Well, just like before, I set the depth of cut until I got a nice tight fit. I've centered the bit, and I put the template in at the 7B along that center line. I mentioned before that I need to make an 1/8 inch rabbet. So I've got the sides here, which are going to be the tails, and I need to make an 1/8 inch rabbet on each side of these. Well, all the sides have got that 1/8 inch dovetail rabbet in it now, and I've put these back to back to back to back to back to back like that. And I'm actually going to cut these all at once. So I've got my right angle fixture back on here. Just want to push those against it, make sure it's firm against the fence and firm against my table, and then clamp them down. Now that I have those clamped, I'm just going to make the 3 B cuts, flip these over, and do the same thing on the other side. While my tails are cut, that took all of about, I'd say about 2 minutes to do. While my tails have been cut, it's time to start working on the pins. I've got my shop stop set up on my rail. The stop itself is raised up above the dovetail bit and covers just a little portion of the bit at its widest point. I'm going to do some test cuts, and that's going to tell us exactly where this needs to be after we make those. I've got one of the backs here. I'm going to be using this as my test piece. I've already got the jig set up to make the first A cut. There's going to be a total of 6 cuts total, and I just need to take this, push it in till it hits this, pull it back, move the jig over, and make the next cut. So this is the test piece right here, and this is one of the tail boards I cut before. Just going to fit that in there. Nice tight fit. And I can see that this is standing about 1/16 of an inch proud of this piece. So I just need to take this and use the incremental scale that's on top of the fence and move this back 1/16 of an inch. Make that test cut again and make sure everything is good. Well, after that second test cut, okay, that's a nice flush fit and it's a nice tight joint. So now I just need to go ahead and run the rest of the pieces. So all the dovetails for the drawer boxes have been cut and the case have been cut. Realistically, it only took me about 15, maybe 20 minutes to cut all these dovetails. You do have to spend a little time figuring out exactly which dovetail template you want to use. You need to set your depth of cut correctly and also center your piece properly. But once you do that, everything goes together real fast. I've already put 3 coats of amber shellac on the drawer fronts, and I put a coat of garnet shellac on the case. It's got a real nice reddish color to it now. So I'm getting ready to put water locks on here, and this is just a wiping tung oil, almost like a poly. I'll probably end up putting 2, maybe 3 coats of this, and I've got to wait 24 hours between coats on it, so it's going to take a couple days to get it finished. So the box is complete, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I think the cherry and ash really complement each other, and the piece has a, I guess you could say, a very organic look to it. The LS Positioner is more than just a great router fence. It's also a great tool for joinery using the templates in the incremental positioning system. If you have one of these fences, you already know how easy it is to use. If you don't and you're looking to upgrade your current router fence, I can't recommend the LS Positioner enough. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.